And welcome to Talk Spicy. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. Thank you for joining me wherever you were joining me. Rate the show, comment, agree, disagree, but whatever you do, keep it spicy. 5-star ratings are appreciated. And if you're joining me on the YouTube channel, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. And welcome back to another week, coming off of a weekend where a lot of people were sad. A lot of people were disappointed. Let me just say this to start with. I am a Florida State Seminole fan. I have always been a Florida State Seminole fan. From the time that I started really following college football, that's been my team. I've seen them through a lot of ups and downs. I was there for the high times. I was there for the low. When I feel like Bobby Bowden was stabbed in the back by his then offensive coordinator and head coach in waiting, who turned out to be exactly who I thought he was. I was there for the resurgence when he actually started doing his job as a head coach, and Florida State was able to ascend to the mountaintop again. I was there for the drop-off when he essentially exploded the program, left it in shambles, left Willie Taggart just a complete and utter mess to try to clean up. And then I watched as the fan base and the school gave him essentially a year and a few months to do it. And now I've watched as Mike Norvell, who has done a great job, has put together a team that it looks competitive on a game in, game out basis, regardless of who the team is. All that being said, I would have loved for Florida State to be in the college football playoff. I think they deserved to be in the college football playoff. I think that it would have been fair for them to be in the college football playoff. But ladies and gentlemen, the college football playoff was never meant to be fair. It was meant to be right. So we have to ask ourselves, what do we want? Do we want our college football to be fair, or do we want it to be right? Because if you think that a 12-team playoff is going to change anything, you're sorely mistaken. You can tell by the way they rank things that the top four are the only ones that they really care about making sure that they get right. After that, it's a lot of variance. So now next year, when they have to do 12, they're going to make sure they get the top 12 right, and the rest is going to be variance. Here's fair. Fair is every conference gets a seed. Every conference gets a seed. Every Power 5 conference gets a seed. That would be fair, except there are more than 4 Power 5 conferences. So who do you leave out? Do you leave out the ACC, right? Do you leave out the Pac-12? Do you leave out the Big 12? Because what we've seen is that the Big 10 is getting somebody in, and the SEC is getting someone in. So who gets left out? That becomes the conversation that we have if we're just saying, hey, we're going to put the Power 5s in. But I'm going to stay to this year because I don't want to get too far off on a tangent. Y'all know I'm ADHD. My brain's all over the place. It's Monday morning. I thought Florida State should have been in. I thought it would have been fair. But I don't think it would have been right. I don't think that would have been right. let's not forget that even with Jordan Travis, who has made an astronomical leap in his game from when he first started playing quarterback till now, like, don't ever forget that Jordan Travis, this team with Jordan Travis, they put up points, like a lot of points versus like bad defense. LSU's a historically bad defense. So we can't like take the points they put up versus LSU and compare them, because everybody puts up points on LSU. Everyone puts up yards on LSU. But the offense, even with Jordan Travis, still had flaws. You still could get them one-dimensional, and they were going to have a hard time beating you. And that's in the ACC, which is down. Clemson's not as good. North Carolina's not what people thought they were going to be. Miami's not what people thought they were going to be. NC State's not. Louisville was a surprise team. Why? Because these other teams were just not that great. Georgia Tech is better than we thought they were, but they're not beating anybody that's really good. Wake Forest lost their quarterback, so they weren't as good, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. At every point that you look at, you can see where the ACC is not as good as they've been, right? It's not as strong as it's been. So they feasted on an ACC schedule that was favorable, right? They feasted on the ACC schedule that was favorable. They did their job. They scheduled up. It's not their fault that those teams are not as good, but what's right is right. And once Jordan Travis goes down, and it is clearly stated, right? It's clearly stated in the qualifications that the college football playoff goes by, that they will consider teams and how they are with and without injuries, right? So it's clearly stated there. It's been there. This is something that they've been doing. So now let's just be honest about it, right? Because I heard a lot of people yesterday saying that Florida State, their defense, they held in a Louisville team that scores X amount of points. They held them to 6 points or whatever it is that was. But no one's talking about what Louisville's defense held them to. Louisville's defense is not Alabama's defense. Louisville's defense is not Michigan's defense. Louisville's defense is not Texas's defense, which isn't as good as Alabama or Michigan's defense. Louisville's defense is probably on par with Washington's defense, which isn't very good. But Washington's offense is way better than Louisville's offense. Light years better than Louisville's offense. So while it would have been fair for Florida State to make it, it wouldn't have been right. And I'll take it a step further because other people seem afraid to take it a step further. I'll take it a step further. Washington shouldn't be in either. Look, it's fair for them to be in. They deserve to be in. But if you're telling me that one loss would have completely and totally eliminated them from being in, if they lost to Oregon, people were saying, oh, well then no, they don't have a shot at being in. If your team is a team that is dependent upon being undefeated to have the reason to say you deserve to be in the college football playoff, then you don't deserve to be in the 4. Because teams slip up. This shouldn't be a zero-sum game. This shouldn't be a situation where if you're undefeated, does it matter? Like, does your season count? It shouldn't be only if you win every single game should it count. And again, I'm not talking about what would have been fair, because I started this by saying Florida State deserved to be in. Washington deserved to be in, right? But if we're talking about what's right, and all we can do is use our eyes, right, and say what we believe will happen if Florida State plays Alabama, how is Florida State scoring? If Florida State plays Georgia, how is Florida State scoring? Because their backup quarterbacks don't look like anything more than guys who can operate, who can take snaps, hand off the ball, throw an occasional pass. They don't look dynamic enough to beat those defenses. They don't look dynamic enough to be able to win consistently versus those defenses. I don't know if Jordan Travis could. I know it's unpopular. I know that people are I know that people are weary about it, right? I know that they think that somebody is hating if they say it, but I'm just trying to tell you what I've seen. You don't have to agree or disagree. You don't have to agree. You don't have to disagree. But this is what I've seen. If we're taking the college football playoffs and we're ranking them by who is the 4 teams that could beat anybody on the list, right? The 4 teams that legitimately on any single day have the chance to beat anybody on the list, anybody on the roster. You're saying Michigan by default, right? By default, not that Michigan's the best team, because I don't believe Michigan's the best team. But by default, they ran through the Big Ten. The Big Ten was down, but as people have said, and I've said, a lot of conferences were down, right? They ran through the Big Ten. They handled Ohio State pretty handily. Got to give them their props, right? You say Michigan. You say Texas with healthy Quinn Ewers and all of the weapons. You say Alabama because that defense is otherworld. They've got Nick Saban, and they have the nuclear option at quarterback. They have a Jalen Milroe who has an arm that's a cannon. They have a Jalen Milroe who, when he tucks it, he is as fast and as explosive as any great running back and or receiver in college football. And they have a belief in themselves, right? Now, Saban almost messed it up. He almost messed it up. That little stupid experiment at South Florida where he wanted to try to get them other boys in there to play quarterback, trying to blame the loss to Texas on Milroe because he threw 2 interceptions in a game early in the season versus an experienced defense. It was dirty work. It was dirty work. But he righted his wrong. He corrected his mistake. And then you're saying Georgia, right? You're saying Michigan, Texas, Alabama, Georgia. Those are the 4 teams that have a chance to beat anybody, or that are most likely, not even have a chance, they're most likely going to beat anybody. Those 4 teams could beat any one of those other 4 teams. That's what the college football playoff should be, right? I didn't hear all of this complaining and whining and moaning when Central Florida went undefeated. People made a mockery of it. People joked about it. They said, oh, but it was Central Florida. But that offense that year was operating at a level well above any other offense in the league, any of them, not even Oklahoma. That offense, with its ability to run and its ability to pass the ball, was operating at a level where you had to give them a chance to beat anybody in the country with time to prepare and on a neutral site. So with time to prepare and on a neutral site, UCF didn't get the opportunity. And people laughed about it. They weren't hurt, right? They didn't have any injuries. They did the job that was in front of them. They beat Power 5 schools. But everybody just said, oh, well, they're an AAC team. So no, immediately. Shout out to Jason Campbell, who posted about it. And then my guy, my longtime friend, Jarris McIntyre, head coach of Tampa Catholic and longtime Auburn alum, reposted about it. When Auburn was sitting there undefeated, they left Auburn at home. They left Auburn out of the BCS. And you know what Auburn had? A fully loaded, fully healthy team. They did not have a team that was without their best player, their leader, their most magnetic player, their explosive option. They never were without that. They were never without that. And yet, with that, they still were not afforded the opportunity to compete. So this isn't the first time we've seen teams who are worthy left behind. Last year, they left out a one-loss Alabama team. Excuse me. They left out a two-loss Alabama team, that I believe 2 losses, that was clearly better than the other teams who had suffered injuries earlier in the year and were getting healthy at the right time. They left them at home. So this is not something new. This is not something like different. There's no precedent that's been set. The only precedent that people want to speak to is the fact that Florida State was undefeated. But undefeated doesn't guarantee you anything. Not when there's only 4 spots. Not when there's only 4 places. Would it be fair? Of course it would. Would it be right? And I don't mean right when people use right like it's fair, right? I don't mean right when people use right like it's fair. FSU is scoring half of the points that they were scoring before Jordan Travis went down. FSU's offense does not look the same as it looked before Jordan Travis went down. We can wax poetic about their season. We can be upset about it. We can be depressed by it. We can say how much this is a travesty. People can be angry. People can be upset. But the truth is the truth. The truth is the truth. Now, here's what we'll see, right? Here's what we'll see. How bad does Florida State want to prove to people that they belong? Because you guys know how I feel about tanking. You know how I feel about skipping out on stuff. How bad does Florida State want to prove that they belong? Because they are matched up with Georgia. And they have time to game plan. They have time to get those backup quarterbacks who have not looked good, which I don't understand why you don't have good backup quarterbacks in college when you're literally recruiting the best players in the country every year. But okay, I want to see what they look like. I want to see if those players are down to show how really good they are, or if those players that are going to the NFL will just vote and say, "Oh, well, it's not a national title, so it's not a chance for a national title, so I'm not going to play again." Like, we're going to figure out very quickly what this FSU team is made of, right? Because if you see a bunch of guys sitting out, that tells me, and again, this isn't going to be like an indictment on the kids sitting out, but it's just the reality. That's telling me they didn't want to prove it. That their focus is on the NFL. Cool. You know who's going to show up to that game looking to win it? Georgia. Georgia will 100% show up to that game looking to win it. And that's regardless of who plays. Those guys are used to playing in postseason games. So they will not look at it as, oh, I should sit out this postseason game. They will look at it as, I have a job to finish. I'm going to finish the job. Hopefully they try to figure out a way to get some NIL money out of it, right? As Florida State players should do. But that's going to tell the tale. Hey, you know what the selection committee did? Or what the bowl committee did after the selection committee was finished? They said, okay, yeah, we know we quote unquote screwed you, Florida State. Here's Georgia. Do what UCF did. Here's Georgia. Do what Auburn did. So that every single time they talk about this year's champion, they got to bring up the fact that they left you out and that you defeated the two-time national champion, that you defeated in a bowl game that's worth $10 million plus. You defeated the two-time back-to-back national champion who only lost to Alabama by a small margin in the SEC championship game, which was their first loss in 23 games. If you want to prove something, that's how you prove it, because that's all you've got left now. But if it's, oh, well, we didn't make it, so now forget everything else, well, then, hey, that's what we got. But Georgia won't. Georgia will not mail it in, I guarantee you. You don't think Georgia's upset that they're not in the college football playoff? Georgia, who's been running roughshod over the SEC, which is, I don't care what you people keep trying to tell me, it is the best conference in football, bar none. They care more, they spend more money, they got better players. Forget about it. Nobody's talking about Missouri. And Missouri was a good team this year. Imagine if Missouri was still in the Big 12. Oklahoma State made the Big 12 championship. I believe they had like 4 losses. A 4-loss SEC team ain't making nothing but the Idaho Potato Bowl. That's it. A 4-loss SEC team is not in the market, is not in the running for anything, let alone a conference championship. So these people are not the same. These people are not the same. When the Big 12 added teams, they went out and added bottom tier ACC teams. Or not ACC, excuse me, bottom tier or middle of the pack Big 12 teams. Sorry, not Big 12, Big East teams. They added teams that are not winning championships, that just give them another footprint somewhere. When the Big Ten originally added teams, they did the same thing. When the SEC added teams, they were going for the home run hitters. Hey, we'll take you, Texas A&M. We'll take you, Missouri. But we really want Texas and Oklahoma. And guess what they got? Texas and Oklahoma. It just means more than the SEC. Miss me with the other stuff. You don't think that Georgia is at home right now going, I cannot believe they put any other team's name in over us. And for the people out there saying that they should have left Alabama out because they lost to Texas, just remember that Alabama lost to Texas in the fourth quarter by a close margin. And then they beat the number one team in the nation when it mattered the most. They beat the number one team in the nation, essentially on their home turf. Remember, the SEC championship game is in Atlanta. That is an hour and 15 minutes, hour 20 minutes away from Athens. That's a home game for Georgia. Alabama rolled their tide right into Atlanta and stomped out Georgia. They beat Georgia at Georgia. More physical defense, explosive plays, controlling the line of scrimmage. That's what Alabama did. They did it to Georgia, in Georgia. Florida State does not have a win, not one that looks like that. Alabama has Florida State's best win. Florida State's best win is LSU. Their best win is LSU. Alabama destroyed LSU. Destroyed LSU. Oh, well, Alabama didn't play well versus Auburn. That's a rivalry game. You throw the records out the window in a rivalry game. It's a rivalry game. Listen, I'm not saying that it's fair. I don't believe it's fair. But it's hard not to tell me that it's right. And if we're being honest, they could have went a step further. If we're being honest, if they left out Washington, I love Mike Penix Jr., 813 over everybody all day. I love what he's done. But if they left them out and put Georgia in, I wouldn't have been mad either. This is what we've got. Next year it'll be different. That's what they told Auburn when they left Auburn out. Hey, this is the system we've got. Next year it'll be different. Hey, that's what it is, right? Ladies and gentlemen, that's Talk Spicy. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. We do this thing a few times a week. Rate the show, comment, agree, disagree, but whatever you do, keep it spicy. 5-star ratings are appreciated. If you're joining me on the YouTube channel, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. Till next time, peace.